It's the Slam Dunk.
Imagine being a hard-working young Kiwi family. First kid, second on the way. Hard-working but low income, saving hard, doing all the right things to get on the property ladder. Then you see a house for sale, a former state house. It's an ad there, and it's priced in the 400,000. Suddenly your eyes light up and you say to the missus, we can do this. We can afford a house with that sort of price tag. We've saved, we work, and we're budget conscious. This is us. Except it's not. You're not welcome, not invited. Not part of this cosy club because you're not Maori. Because the people selling it are the local iwi who bought it under a first right of refusal offer from the government's Kāinga Ora housing agency, which is a long-standing deal that they had under their treaty settlement, which only recently Kāinga Ora has started to trigger. So Kāinga Ora packages up a bunch of houses in South Auckland and the Waikato and says to the iwi, which is Tainu, you fellas want this? And Tainu says, yep, and they agree to sell almost 20 properties to Tainu for $10 million. That's under the market value. We're not even tested by the market, not tested by competing interest or by tender, anything. Just, here we go. Until now, the first right of refusal deal has only been used once, but Kāinga Ora, it seems, is starting to do more of this. Recently, a Wellington iwi got a huge set of apartments, huge number of apartments for $1 million, and they sold it weeks later to a developer for $3 million. It's all totally legal under their treaty settlements, their deal where the government has effectively locked out a huge section of New Zealand from getting access to these cheap houses. Will this ruffle feathers? Yeah, of course. Does the government want you to know? Probably not. They'd probably prefer it all under the radar because quite clearly the government agreed process promotes two New Zealands, Māori here and non-Māori over there. Now, Māori home ownership is lower than other New Zealanders, so the government argues this is one way, perhaps, of getting it up. That's the deal that they struck. But it's an expensive way to do it because it comes at great social cost to the nation. It divides us. Pākehā get a bit funny about this. It creates and drives two New Zealands. And the Pākehā said, well, I want some of that. Well, you can't have it. And here's where the argument falls over. Surely you can get Māori home ownership up without punishing everyone else by locking them out of the process. Our grandparents built and paid for these houses, and they never expected them to be sold exclusively in the future to just one particular race of New Zealanders, did they? And besides, Pacifica home ownership is actually lower than Māori, so imagine how they feel about all this. Locked out, and the houses they perhaps can afford are not even on the market for them. How does that help their families? It doesn't. It probably feels really unfair and unjust to them. Let's call it what it is. It's racism. It's spinning it on race. Because it clearly promotes one race over everybody else. And if it was on genuine need, surely you'd just use income levels. But this is purely on race. This is being allowed in New Zealand under the deal that the national government struck 30 years ago with the iwi. But it's really only kicking in now, certainly getting publicity now. As iwi fortunes rise, they're in a position to buy these houses in bulk deals using money given to them by taxpayers decades ago. And as their wealth increases, they've got more flexibility. It's under Chris Luxon's government that Kāinga Ora has done these two housing transactions lately. Luxon, despite making noises about ending these sorts of divisive deals, has done no such thing because he can't. It's a treaty right. He actually can't at all. He never could. Any suggestion by National they'd get on top of these sorts of things, it was pure political opportunism and naivety. It amounts to a backroom handshake deal where the rest of us are locked out and Kāinga Ora and Tainui agree on a price which is not tested by the open market and the houses are not offered to any other New Zealanders in any way. So the iwi buy them, offer them to iwi members only for a set price below at all cost. Some houses are being sold for tens of, or if not hundreds of thousands of dollars below registered valuation. Good on Tainui. They're not even making money out of this. They're making sure that their people get into houses. That's really honourable. But is this a good use of taxpayer asset? Are we getting maximum price for it as taxpayers? And who gets the privilege nowadays anyway? All this makes ordinary New Zealanders shake their heads and mutter, are you kidding me? Kāinga Ora, the government's housing agency, the outfit that's supposed to help all New Zealanders, quietly sells off 18 ex-state homes for $10.3 million. Not on the open market, not to first home buyers, not to any hard-working Kiwi who's been smashed by interest rates and the soaring rents. No, you're over there. This is iwi only. We've carved this off. We've carved it off. They're flogged off wholesale to Waikato Tainui, who then flips them exclusively to iwi members. They're probably not making much money out of this, if any. But if you're not in the tribal role, congratulations, you never had a chance. The door wasn't just closed, it was welded shut. These homes are being resold as is whereas. There's no grand upgrades. There's no magical fixes. No multi-million-dollar refits or rebuilds. Just a conveyor belt. Crown land, iwi purchase, iwi only sale. This isn't righting historic wrongs. It creates new ones. This isn't reconciliation. It's a housing policy being run like a backstage VIP club with a bouncer at the door asking for your card that says whakapapa. While thousands of state houses are being cancelled or demolished, Kāinga Ora is quietly offloading the ones that do exist, and instead of putting them back into the hands of all New Zealanders, they're funneling them into a closed loop. Try explaining that to the young Pākehā couple I mentioned earlier on in this podcast. earning a combined, say, 110K who can't crack the market, or the Indian family who's been renting for 17 years, or the Pacifica mum working 2 jobs, or literally anyone else who doesn't tick the right ancestry box. I think it's wrong. I do. Tell them the house that they might have afforded for $499,000 never hit the market because they weren't allowed to buy it. And here's the part that really grinds the gears. Government agencies are selling public assets at volume in a housing crisis, and the public doesn't get to compete. So the public is shut out of a process to buy houses. No auction, no tender, no transparency, just a quiet side door deal and a sorry not for you sign slapped across the front gate. Sorry, are you iwi? Across the front. If you're iwi, come on in. If you're not, out. How is this housing policy fair? How is it socially equitable? How is this anything other than structurally locking out thousands of Kiwis who are already struggling? Pākehā struggle too. Indians struggle too. Pacifica struggle too. They're all Kiwis. Now, if this were happening in reverse, if the government was selling houses to non-Māori only, the country would explode, and rightly so. But when the exclusion runs the other way, it's purely just the sound of crickets. Just, you've heard them before. You've heard it before. This is not about attacking Māori. It's about attacking bad policy that slices the country into two. There's insiders and outsiders at a time when we desperately need unity and shared opportunity. If we want a fair, functioning modern New Zealand where ordinary people get a fair shot at the roof over their heads, then these quiet carve-outs and backroom disposals, they've got to stop. But how do you overturn an already negotiated and agreed legal treaty deal? The government tells Kāinga Ora to stop offering these deals. Can they do that? But if iwi find out about that, they'll be straight to court. It's why this right of first refusal was always going to cause problems down the track, division and exclusion. And the problem here, the government agreed to this measure decades ago and they locked it in. And all it's doing is entrenching 2 New Zealanders. It's not fixing a housing crisis. That's the real scandal. It is not fixing any housing crisis.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan